Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the 14th episode of Tales from the Brick podcast. Here with me tonight, I have hailing from H2O compound in Williamston, New Jersey, Anthraxx. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Pleasure to be here.
So, for the interview of today, I'm pretty excited because I have a very talented student of Matt Tremont, who, for those who don't know, is very successful deathmatch legend, but I don't know. You should be here if you're not a fan or you don't even know Matt Tremont. So, first question for Anthraxx. How did you get in contact with H2O Wrestling and when did you start training at the compound?
Uh, I knew Matt for a while, actually. I was one of his first students with Sean Henderson, but things didn't really. I was in that first class and a couple classes after that, but things just didn't work out. So at that point in time, I had to step away. But I've known Matt since CZW. It's been that long. So H2O opened up and everything in my life got straightened out and I hit him up and I came in and the rest is pretty much history.
Yeah, you knew Matt from CCW crowd experiences
Yeah.
because Tremont was actually a CZW fan because before he was involved in a very important angle with DJ Hyde,
Yep.
which I can't remember if Tangled Web came before Cage of Death, but I think so because.
It was Tangled Web.
All right.
Then they did a show in Delaware with them. I think it was the Squared Circle of Sacrifice, where they took the ring canvases off and stuff like that. And then came Cage Death.
All right. So if you can talk about that, why didn't you got comfortable in the first place and leaving before coming back?
It was just family things, you know. Even before that, I was actually a student of CZW. It's always been one thing after the other. Those things that really haven't worked out, whether it's family or personal reasons. Uh, but it's been a while in the making. But I'm here now, and I've been training with H2O for about a year now, and I made my debut with them about four months into my training. I made my debut, so it's pretty crazy how things work out. I was in CZW school around the time frame that Frankie Picard and Connor Claxton was still students. That's how long ago that was.
Oh my God. So
Yeah.
we can say that you're practically a veteran, even though you haven't been in the ring for too much.
uh, I wouldn't call myself a veteran, but if you want to, you can. I don't consider myself any type of veteran. I'm still as green as can be. Trust me.
I don't know, man. I quite liked the Mind Games match. That was actually the very first match that got my attention of you. Like that's why I wanted to call you for this podcast. So, like deathmatch wrestling has been very popular in the latest few years. With GCW starting the with the Nick Gage Invitational and
Mhm.
all that stuff. But what most of the people can't actually understand is that deathmatch wrestling is still professional wrestling, and there are not two guys who actually hit each other with light tubes and fuckery and stuff. So,
Yes.
how much Matt Tremont? Well, this interview is not about him, but it still regards all of you. So, how much Matt Tremont tries to teach you the importance of storytelling, basic professional wrestling, all that
Uh,
stuff.
um. See, the thing is, Matt wants us to be workers. Wants to be us to be wrestlers we before deathmatch or anything like that. And if we do hardcore deathmatch, he wants it to um, make sense. He doesn't want it to be just violence for the sake of violence. And that's how I told him straight up. That's how I am. I don't like violence for the sake of violence. I don't like hack and slash, just go in there and hit each other with things, and that's the match. I don't like that. I told him, I've told a lot of people this, that the people I look up to in deathmatch wrestling are the people that I want to be, such as Danny Havoc, Masada, Matt Tremont himself, G Raver, all these people that go out there and can wrestle, but also do deathmatch wrestling.
Yeah, I'm pretty amazed that you nominated G Raver, who was on this podcast once, because G Raver has been in the game for so many years and he has got the attention he deserves only in the last like 4 or 5 years. But there are not many deathmatch wrestlers who got his popularity in this, this period of time.
Right.
Okay.
That's true. It's true. I mean, deathmatch wrestling is frowned upon. It's like the black sheep of the wrestling world, but that's fine. It's just something I like. Even when I go out there and have a regular match, I feel like my matches are more hardcore, even without using weapons, because of the way my physicality is in the ring.
And there's one question that I actually wanted to ask you about that. Of all the students of Matt Tremont, I see, and not in an offensive way, but just the way they're portraying themselves, like Will Ospreay's wannabes, the first Will Ospreay, maybe. The kids are, and not only Matters, McKay, and the other one, I'm sorry.
Austin Luke.
Austin Luke, sorry. They are all like high flying, very fast action. They can still do professional wrestling in a storytelling way.
Correct.
They can tell a story in the ring, as Marcus Matters most of the time showed us. But why did you choose to be more hardcore than them?
Well, I look at it like this. When you look at me and look at me in the ring and stuff like that, you don't necessarily think that I'm going to go out there and just have a mat classic and technically wrestling, all that stuff. That's not who I am. Like, literally, if I just go out there and I beat the crap out of you, and that's it. I can technical wrestle. I can do that stuff. But if there's a time and a place for it, like, really with me, I just go out there, and my biggest offense is just throwing stiff forearms. If you watch any of my matches, that's what I do 90% of the time. And that's that. Like, that and suplexes are kind of my repertoire. Yeah, that's just how I turned out to be. Like, I'm different from the bunch. You have Marcus and Dylan and Austin, and you have Rocket and you have Reed and all these guys that do all this stuff and can high fly, could do 5,000 Canadian destroyers. But then there's me, and I just don't do that stuff. What you see is what you get, and it's in your face. And
well, on a kayfabe note, this wouldn't be correct, but I think Eric Ryan and Ricochet Page will be pretty proud of you for that. Not using so much Canadian destroyers.
Yeah.
They,
on a non kayfabe note, like, I would hope they would be. I look up to those people. Even Matt Tremont himself, who on his retirement show said he only did like 3 things. He said the word "ha," and then he threw a Memphis right hand and a DVD, and he got over with that because of storytelling, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. I can go out there and I can tell a story. I don't have to do all these crazy things, but when the time is right, and I know that I will do those crazy things.
And the big fork you carry with you on the ring, it's like something you didn't steal, but you took from Matt Tremont's repertoire or something like that.
Matt actually gave me that fork. We did a promo with me and Mitch for Heir to the Throne because he was my veteran.
Yeah.
And we said, well, can we use this fork in the promo just to make myself seem more crazy? And he said, use it. And then I tried to give it back to him. And he told me to keep it. And I was honored because that is the last fork that Matt ever used, and he gave it to me.
So that's a pretty big honor for you. That's really awesome. Really awesome. With COVID hitting, unfortunately, you of the H2O school weren't, except from a few people, allowed like traveling and do a lot of dates. But what at the same time, like this helped H2O in like building itself, the promotion, not
Mhm.
the wrestler on the promotion, but the promotion over wrestlers. So,
Right.
how much did you think this helped in developing storylines, getting better and stuff?
Well, Matt says it best, and he's always said this, that COVID was a blessing in disguise for us, because while other people were closed down, we were still running with as minimal people as possible, or as many people as possible we were allowed to have. Um, we were still running when other places couldn't run. I have other places around New Jersey, like GCW had been running with no crowd for a while. Monster Factory, I don't think they ran. I think they just started back up again. I really don't know. I just know that we were like the one of the only promotions that were still running and still drawing crowds. For that last extravaganza that we had that weekend, the first night, I think we grew close to 500 people, which for the pandemic is insane.
Yeah.
But it just shows that the fans are dedicated and they still want professional wrestling.
Yeah, that's a pretty big goal you had right there. And seeing the show, it was well deserved, because not only Matt Tremont retired on that show, but there was some really fascinating thing that all of you were, or almost all of you were 3 months students. So is building a true legacy out of it. It's like it's building his own promotion with his own hands, and is
Right.
training all of you guys, and that's very admirable. So that's really awesome.
If you could look at it at any standpoint, and I believe this, that we're like the land of the misfit toys, kind of like ECW was, how they build themselves from the ground up with their stars, and that's kind of what we're going with. Like, it's very rare that we bring in anybody that is new to H2O. The newest person we brought in was Nolan Edwards. The
I
first
love
time we
that
brought
guy.
him in,
I love that guy.
the first time we brought him in, he had that match of the year candidate, in my opinion, with Austin Luke.
Me too.
At Subterranean Violence Night. That was something. And then he came in again last Monday and faced Big Red Ryan Redfield. And Ryan actually pinned him. So that's a big, that's a big thing for Ryan to pin Nolan. It wasn't anything hardcore. It was just straight up stiff wrestling, which is sometimes that's all you need.
I agree with that. That was a really big upset for Ryan Redfield, who, in my opinion, is one of the most talented guys out there. Like,
For sure.
You can see is still a little, as a fan, still a little bit of green on some things. But how long has he wrestled? Like 2 or 3 years?
About that, yeah. Ryan was actually my first match. So for him to go out there and not have that much experience and was able to, be the veteran in that match was pretty good on him. I think it's about 2 years. I know he was training in old time pro wrestling, OTW. That was what was there before H2O. At that compound, it was OTW.
All right.
And Matt would run H2O events out of there, and also On Point Wrestling events out of there, until he eventually bought the building and made it the H2O Wrestling Center. The rest is history. But yeah, back on Ryan, he's been around for a while. He's got some experience under his boots. And later this month, I don't remember the date, but they're going to No Peace Underground, Ryan, Breed, and Austin, in a 3-on-1 match. On a 3-on-1 match against Pero. So that's going to be something.
Yeah, I like that, actually, and I'm gonna say this before another question. No Peace Underground has the guts to proposing some really violent, maybe one of the most violent deathmatch wrestling on the scene, and on this at the same time building characters like Old School, or even bring him in non-deathmatch wrestlers such as very talented Jake Something or Roy
Right.
Raju, who is really like underlooked, underrated, and people have been slapped on him for years. And I'm really happy that No Peace Underground is building talents and
Yep.
sending them in the field. But another question, uh, in H2O, like um, you have sometimes the paying the dues thing,
Hmm.
and that thing has never been taken uh, before. Has always been taken before the hot dog and a handshake stuff, which years
Right.
ago would have been like very shocking and stuff. Alex Colon said that fuck the hot dog, the handshake is worth it at the end of the day in the Mad documentary. So
Yes.
how true that the declaration is to you?
Um, I don't believe in the stereotype hot dog and a handshake, but the handshake aspect of it is respect. Um, when you go to a show as a wrestler, uh, or whether the show is coming from your home, you make the time to shake hands with everybody.
I know.
That's just etiquette. But after a good hard fought match, and then the wrestler or the veteran comes up to you and shakes your hand, it's 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 pretty special to hear the roar of the crowd and the respect given. Example I can give is it was cut from Subterranean Violence Volume 9 because for time purposes. But after the match was over in the ring, Marcus came over and shook my hand. He even kissed me on the forehead, which was weird. But then the crowd all stood up and cheered my name because that whole match, because of Marcus is Marcus. They were literally like shitting all over me. They hated my guts, which is fine. But after that match, they stood up and cheered me, which it was very emotional for that. The same thing happened with I faced Mitch Vallon at a Pay Your Dues event, the last Pay Your Dues event. Nothing hardcore, just stiff and storytelling. That should be on IWTV soon. But yeah, we did it. And he came over and after the match and gave me a hug, and the crowd just stood up and chanted, that both these guys chant and everything like that. And it was like, all right, to me, that's worth it. To me, to hear the pop of the crowd after you had a hard fought match and they just stand up and they applaud you, it's worth it to me. And Alex Colon is 100% right. That the reaction from the crowd is always worth it in the end.
There's one question that I actually never asked on this podcast, if I can remember correctly. Um, I don't think you live with professional wrestling right now, as only you've been in for 2 years and stuff, and you're still paying your
Mm-hmm.
dues, blah blah blah. Um, when you're working, when you're actually spending time at work, how much that you can see in the wrestler movie is true? Like, how many people don't respect or even hate or don't understand the business and
Um,
the sport himself?
um, I mean, because I'm still new, I don't really get that too much. But as somebody that's done hardcore stuff, deathmatch stuff, I can sort of answer that question. And there's a lot of people that don't get it. Why you do it? Why do you spend so much time at school training and then doing all these matches? Why do you do it? Um, I've been asked that question a lot by friends and family, like, why do you do this to your body? Yeah, I just like professional wrestling. I am a fan of professional wrestling, and it's just something I've always wanted to do. When you're out there, there's no better feeling in the world than being in front of a live audience, whether it's 5 people or 100 people or more. There's no better feeling in the world, either having them chant your name or having them boo you as the bad guy because both those things are just, yeah, I got them, and they're paid to see me, which is special in its own right. When a fan pays their hard-earned money just to see you wrestle and everybody else wrestle on the roster, it's special. It's like being a movie. It's like being an actor in a movie, basically. Like you're paying going to the movie. Well, not now, but you're going to the movies and paying your money to see these people act on screen. That's basically what it is, except it's a little more violent than most movies, but still, yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world. Like all the sacrifices I've made so far and all the sacrifices I'm going to make, it's all worth it to me because I'm doing what I love to do.
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree 100% with that. Even though I've never wrestled. Sorry. Um, the fact is, in my opinion, people actually don't get the thing that are lots of people actually ruining themselves with alcohol and drugs, and that's still another way to put your body on the line, but not
Right.
for the sake of for the fun and the enjoyment of other people. So I totally agree with you
Yes.
100%.
I mean, like on the wrestler aspect of it, the movie. I mean, I guess it's true in a standpoint, but in the movie itself, like he was retired and um people looked at him weird because like, hey, I gotta do wrestling on the weekend, stuff like that. I mean, I think the aspect of the wrestler movie was his fame and fortune was gone, so he missed it and he had nothing left. And to me, maybe that's what it'll be like when I retire. Like I'll miss it so much that what do I have left now? I'm just working like a 9 to 5 and I got nothing left to show for it. Maybe that's what it'll be like. Maybe it won't. But for right now, I'm pretty happy and pretty content.
I hope you're gonna continue for a lot of years and that your dues will be well paid and that you will succeed for all of that. But talking about succeed after paying your dues, in a couple of hours, no, a few hours, I think, you have none other than lowlife Louis Ramos in a match at H2O. That's right?
That's that's on May 29th. Tonight is Undiscovered.
All right.
Monday. It's Monday. Undiscovereds are $5 to get in. It's just a student show, but sometimes we bring veterans in to work with us. Um, and that's yeah, think of it like when CZW used to run Dojo Wars and stuff like that.
But
That's
funnier, I
basically
think.
yeah, that's just what this is. It's like an NXT. But yes, May 29th at Paid Your Dues, I am wrestling Low Life Louis
Yeah.
in a hardcore match. It's basically going to be Louis's rules. So whatever Louis wants to bring, that's what's going to happen. And this is probably the biggest match of my career so far. This is a match that I get to go out there and show people what I've been working for, and not to sleep on me because um, this is this is a big match for me. Like I'm going to do everything in my power to make myself stand out, and whether that's bleeding buckets or putting myself through whatever, you best believe that I'm going to do it. And then funny enough, later that night is in the same night is a rumble. I don't know how many participants are in it, but the winner gets a shot at Chuck Payne right after the rumble. So there's a good chance I could be working 3 matches in one night.
Yeah, I hope you're gonna succeed in that. And how much have you actually looked up to Low Life Louis? It was Matt Tremont's idea to put you against him, or it was your specific wish to, wrestle him, and like Tremont gave all of you like freedom of action, like
Um,
he asked you, would you prefer to who's your dream opponent or stuff like that?
uh, After my match with Mitch, Louis had came up to me and said that he wanted to wrestle and work with me, and I was honored. I assumed that he hit Matt up and like, hey, there's this kid, and I want to work with him. So Matt basically put it together and said, now it's time to pay your dues because Louis is going to put you through he's going to put you through the ringer. Like he is a deathmatch legend. Louis feels no pain ever. He does things to his body that amaze me and still keeps going. I've looked up to Louis for a long time. I even remember when he was in this I don't even remember what it was called, but it was some kind of promotion that was a bunch of like rappers involved in it and stuff like that. It was really weird,
I
but he was in
think
that. And
it's Juggalo Championship Wrestling or something like that.
no, not. I'm sure he's been at Juggalo Championship Wrestling, but it wasn't Juggalo Championship Wrestling. It was Urban Wrestling, something like that. But yeah, I remember him back then. I remember him in Jersey Championship Wrestling, where that's on IWTV now. You could check that out. He had some really good matches on there, really hardcore matches. If you could compare this match to anything, I would compare it. I would go Mick Foley versus Abdullah the Butcher. Now, that match may have never happened, but you're going to see as close as you're going to get on May 29th. I'm honored to be facing Louis because he is a legend, and I'm honored that he wants to work with me.
I actually think that Foley versus Abby actually happened because I recently wrote his book, and it was telling about Have a Nice Day, which is probably one
Yeah,
of the best books on this ever for professional
I know
wrestling.
him and Abby tag teamed in WCW for a little while.
Yeah,
There was that horrific I don't remember what they called it. Doomsday cage match, something like that, where you had to electrify your opponent to
Chamber
win.
of Horrors, I think Halloween
Chamber
Havoc,
of Horrors.
Halloween Havoc
Yeah, that's it.
1992, the opener,
That's it.
best opener ever, and yeah, I'm fucking sarcastic.
Yeah, it was something. They were a tag team in that. I just remember Abby going crazy because it's beaten up the pile. It was a mess. But yeah, I do remember them tag teaming for a little bit in WCW. If they did have a match, I'm going to have to look into it because it's something that I definitely would like to see.
So you're basically telling that Mick Foley is a big inspiration for you. Actually, yeah, you're a hardcore
Yeah,
wrestler. You're also a hardcore wrestler, so of course Mick Foley is an
yeah.
inspiration.
He's one of my biggest inspirations. He's probably one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I guess my top three would be him, Terry Funk, and Jake the Snake Roberts. Just because, growing up, obviously Hogan and Warrior were my fan favorites as a kid because they were superheroes. But growing up as a teenager and stuff like that, I appreciated the workmanship and the promos and to be able to captivate my imagination like Mick Foley, Terry Funk, and Jake the Snake Roberts did. Because like Jake's not like the other two, obviously, but the way he would cut a promo and the way his ring presence would be just sucked me in. I was like, wow, this is amazing. But yeah, as for Terry Funk and Mick Foley, it's obvious why they are top of my list. Nobody really did it better.
It's really funny that you told their names because as a kid I was immediately attracted to John Cena, but
Mm-hmm.
after I saw the hardcore match at WrestleMania 22, as I many times stated, I was captivated, and from then till now, deathmatch and hardcore wrestling have been a constant in my life as a fan. So, just because you were talking about your inspirations and favorites in professional wrestling, if you have to pick one match that got you involved into professional wrestling that made you think, I want to do this, I want to be like them, what will that match be?
Let me think.
Yeah, even three or more if you want.
Mm-hmm. Going back and looking at tapes, Terry Funk versus Ric Flair in the I Quit match was a big one for me. Mick Foley, obviously, Cactus Jack versus Terry Funk in Japan. That's a big one. It's sick to say because that match was something. But yeah, that made me feel like, oh man, I really want to do this. And I don't know, it's just something about it. I don't know what attracted me to deathmatch wrestling, but I know Mick Foley versus Terry Funk definitely helped. What else can I say? Believe it or not, Rock versus Austin from WrestleMania 17
Why not?
was a
It's
big
one of the
one.
best. It's one of the best main
Yeah,
event in WrestleMania
was a
history.
big one.
Yeah, totally.
Getting older, definitely Mick Foley versus Edge. from WrestleMania 22, and Mick Foley versus Randy Orton from Backlash. That was all
Awesome.
these matches solidified myself, and then going and seeing live professional wrestling / deathmatch wrestling. My first CZW show, I believe it was Sammy Callahan versus Drake Younger in the Iron Man match. That definitely made me believe I want to do that. And Tangled Web versus Matt versus DJ Hyde, sitting in the crowd watching that live was like, man, this is like, that made me get the itch even more. Like all these things just boiled up until I finally broke down and joined CZW school. And like I told you the story before,
Yeah.
stuff happened and now I'm here.
Was the match between DJ Hyde and Tremont like more particular because it involved someone you personally knew?
Yeah. I mean, at the time I didn't know Matt. But given a couple months, I did get to know him. And I remember the first time I actually interacted with him was it was a November show in CZW. I forget the name of it, but he had gotten fired at the show in Delaware, kayfabe fired. And then he had come out to the crowd, and his one of his family members had made signs saying "You're a douchebag" and for DJ Hyde. And he was standing right next to me and held the sign up. That was my sign. And it's funny because that ended up on Botchamania because your douchebag was spelled on the sign Y-O-U-R, not Y-O-U-R-E. So it ended up on Botchamania. So I will forever go down in history as the guy that held the sign up and called himself a douchebag.
So you're basically telling me that your douchebag is your sign?
Yeah, basically, I guess that was the gist of it. That was the joke. It wasn't my sign. It was made by one of his family members, but she had spelled your wrong. So I ended up on Botchamania for it. So that's an accomplishment in my book.
Just because we're talking about it, what did you think of the closure of Botchamania?
Well, Botchamania was a part of me growing up. Like I always watched Botchamania. Now, as a negative side of professional wrestling, but the funny side of professional wrestling. So it's sad, really, but Matthew has said many times that he was ending Botchamania. So I think in one way, shape, or form, it'll be back eventually, but we'll see. Because he said many times, this is the last Botchamania, it's the last one. But we'll see what happens. But all the power to him. He made a living off of it, and he brought fans of wrestling hours and hours of joy. I think there was like almost 500 episodes he made.
Yeah, I think so, or something like that at least. It's very near that that number. But I've never been a fan, but customer is always right. So that's it, and that's honorable that he did. That he made a living out of that. So,
I mean, but the thing is about that, though, if I say one thing, there was a lot of people that weren't fans of Botchamania, but there was a lot of wrestlers that were. There was a lot of wrestlers that were honored to be on Botchamania, like the ones that cut the promos before Botchamania even aired. It was like, hey, I'm such and such, and you're watching Botchamania. Like there was a lot of people that were honored to be on that show because it became such a cult phenomenon that people just wanted to see. Like, oh man, I'm on Botchamania this week, great. So, I mean, the people are going to like it, people are going to hate it. But I had no problem with it. If I ever got the chance to be on it, honestly, I'd feel honored that he actually watched my match and put me on it.
Yeah, that's it. That's one thing. But as I told you, I've never been a true fan of it. I don't know, but anyone has his own purposes and tastes. So one last question before we end up this interview. Like three opponents, I would like you to name three opponents. One from the past that you can't actually face right now, one of the present that you can face, and another one like a future star that hasn't really made it until now, maybe because it's in the wrestling bits, it's been in wrestling bits for
Mhm.
1-2 years that you actually want to face?
Well, from the past, obviously it's going to be Mick Foley or Terry Funk. Um, that would never happen. Obviously, his health, from what I understand, isn't that great. But and Mick Foley is just enjoying retirement. I guess past tense could also be Matt Tremont since he's retired. If Matt ever came back out of retirement, I've told him like I'm calling you out if you ever come back, just so you
I
know.
imagine that.
Um, present star, probably Ricky. Ricky is
Huh.
so good at what he does.
Yeah.
Ricky or Nick. Obviously, Nick Gage is on a lot of people's deathmatch bucket list. But either one of them, maybe I'll get the chance to face Ricky since he's with H2O. But we'll see. But he is definitely a bucket list for me. Louis was on that bucket list, but now I'm crossing that off my bucket list. And somebody that's on the rise that I would love to face. I think honestly, I really want to go one-on-one in any type of match with Rocket. I think because Rocket came into the school, crash landed into the school, not too far after I did. Made his debut literally 2 or so weeks before I did. So we were on that same path line together. And Rocket is somebody that I've wanted to face for a while because me and him, like, we're cool. We really like, and we like the stiff style of stuff. So if we ever went out there, you would definitely hear us hitting each other.
Yeah, I think Rocket is really talented, and I've seen him rise and even more on the latest few months. It's
Yeah.
really a really gift. High flyer, very speed,
Uh,
very picture perfect. But
Frankie Picard took him under his wing, and
I saw it. Yeah.
since then he's shot to the moon. No pun intended.
Yeah, it's really good. And that's a very good pick. And I hope you're gonna do it one day, but I'm sure it can happen. We'll make a really interesting, like, big guy versus very skinny guy, underdog
Uh,
situation or something like that.
yeah. It would probably be along those lines. I'm sure Rocket would try and run circles around me and stuff like that. Um, I mean, future star aspect, like me and Austin Luke have faced before at Undiscovered, but I would like to face him again. That match wasn't everything I wanted it to be, so I would love to get the chance to get in the ring with him again. Maybe throw some weapons in there or something because, and Marcus Mathers again because I owe him a couple shots.
I hope it's gonna happen. I will be really excited to see it again. So before we finish this interview, can you tell people your social media you're on,
Yeah.
so that they can actually follow you?
At Instagram is Anthraxx with 2 X's, H2O, all one word. Twitter is the same handle, Anthraxx, 2 X's at H2O. Not at H2O, it's Anthraxx, 2 X's, H2O. Both on Twitter and Instagram. And on Facebook, you can just look me up as Anthraxx with 2 X's. You'll find me somewhere on the feed. But yeah, that's how you can find me on all social media platforms.
And of course, if you are lucky enough to be American, just go to H2O show and watch him perform alongside all the other students, because there's a lot of talent right there. They're building themselves. They've been building themselves from zero, and now there's a lot of talent right there, like their own talent. I'm not talking about indie darlings. I'm talking about guys who are busting their ass up for a spot in the main event, and I'm not talking about only the H2O main event, but maybe the independent scene main
I mean,
event.
even if you're curious about H2O, you can always get IWTV. All our catalog is on there. You can do that. I am on there and a couple events: Heir to the Throne, Subterranean Violence. There's a Pay Your Dues event on there. I do something on Mystery Violence Theater Act 2 and future things to come. I mean, you can watch all of our catalog on there. My personal suggestion would be if you get IWTV and check out H2O, check out the last extravaganza first, because that is one of our biggest events in history. So that itself would get you hooked to the company.
Yeah, so I think we have said pretty much everything. Thank you again, Anthraxx, for being here today with me. It was an honor to interview you and having you on
Not
my
a problem.
podcast. So if you want to say goodbye to the fans of Tales from the Prick and like ending this interview the best way. So the word is to you.
Thanks for checking out this podcast of Tales from the Prick. My name is Anthraxx, and no one is safe.